So I got a note from Joseph. I'll put a video
Okay.
of his login is scheduled for a later time.
Okay.
Post-it notes in this top drawer. Pardon? Oh. One of the things I've been able to do is I've been folks reading their pieces,
Yeah.
so I'm able to send them their words being shared out in the world. So I'm leaning into folks whose pieces have not been saved. And typically, one of the authors is able to join us for the video call.
Yeah.
But the time that he has selected, I'm sure will be done by then. So
Right.
but it's a back. Yeah. So any of these, so
Yeah.
Peter, he's got some more, so David.
So it's cool. Got it.
Either.
Okay. I'm gonna check them out. What speaks to you?
Excuse me, thank you.
Yeah.
What's up, Brady? He says, you're a copy, so I'll split it.
That means that. Okay, yeah. All right, that sounds good to me. So how did you? Yeah. Okay.
So just I did a lot of outreach, so similar. So I took this voices, I coach the youth.
Gotcha.
In fact, we just, on my ouch, my legacy, well, the city laureate was to create a youth support laureate program.
Let's go. Yeah.
So definitely, is there a youth support laureate anywhere?
Here we have a youth or student ambassador. Student poet ambassador. I can't get the phrasing right. They don't call it a laureate. That's the sentence. But we have one for the state, a young person.
Yeah, for the state already.
We just started. It's our third year in that.
State.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah,
So we like assign them in at the state capitol and things like that.
Wow.
Very cute.
Because the youth laureates are typically in city level, that could be a theater.
Yeah.
And also have a national network, so Amanda Gorman.
Right. Exactly.
From
Mm-hmm.
this, the youth laureate network.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so I've been working with youth.
Yeah.
So I'm sure I do a workshop.
Mm-hmm.
And those volunteers, and she cares to keep them.
Yeah. You go. Yeah. Well,
And
good
they keep
people,
you.
right?
You
Yeah.
know, they move out of your state, they keep you. So you've done some stuff with her, no, but teaching them.
No, so her organization that she did, and because she taught in Des Moines, but then she started a nonprofit there with working with youth poets. And I started a program in Iowa City. And when I started mine, they had been running for a while. So I reached out to them and said, can you show me what you do? Like, well, how are you doing this, right? I'm a young person with a big dream and I know nothing, right? And so they sat down with me, her and her husband at the time, sat down with me and talked through kind of how they started and what that journey was like. And so that's how we got connected. And then our students used to compete together or against each other.
Oh, perfect.
So the last couple of years of that program in Des Moines, it's under a new name and new leadership now, but the last couple of years of that program, they were doing a 3-city slam. They were bringing in Iowa City people, Waterloo, and then Des Moines. We compete. Yeah, it was good.
I finished signing. I always left this. I have more words to say, but I'm mindful of the time. Got people in line.
I hear you. Yep.
So
Let's do it.
Do we need to wait for Marsha or?
no. So if she comes in, we will adjust.
Okay.
And if she does not, we are ready.
Sounds great.
We haven't seen.
If the door chime, I'll just plug in. I was like, that was one thing I wanted to make sure.
The door chime.
Yeah, we have a door chime, so when people come in, it chimes. So there's no need for it to chime in the middle of all of this. Okay. Do this. Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. My name is Terry, and I am the owner of Swamp Box Bookstore. We have been in the Marion community for 5 years, and we're welcoming everybody who's in the stores tonight, as well as those of you who are joining us online. We've never broadcasted one of our events live from the store, so we're excited to be able to do that tonight. And tonight we're welcoming Dasha Kelly Hamilton. She is a writer, performance artist, and a creative change agent. She holds an MFA in creative writing from Antioch University and has authored award-winning poetry, essays, and fiction. She voices audiobooks and is a main stage storyteller and host with The Moth, and is an alum of HBO's Deaf Poetry Jam, and is Poet Laureate Emerita for both the city of Milwaukee and the state of Wisconsin. So welcome, Dasha.
Thank you, good people.
He had a job collecting insurance payments $2 a week, drove a covered wagon to El Dorado searching for gold, died in the mines there, poured wine on the Titanic, ate dinner with the boys one time, forced the bank to open a checking account separate from her husband's, cleaned the tiger cage on a circus train, cleaned the whorehouse near Reno, helped clean up the city after Katrina, fell 44th to the new scaffolding of Chicago, contracted polio, lived near the internment camps and swore she heard them screaming, worked the light on Birth of a Nation, worked at C.J. Walker's factory, scheduled to work the day of Apollo 11, but his appendix burst through the banner at the Rose Bowl, crossed the border without his family, passed through Ellis Island without his wife, refused to cut his hair, refused to burn her bra, was charged with war crimes, heresy, tax evasion, hammered wet metal into missiles, posted a bill of sales for slaves, showed housewives how to sell Tupperware, war, God, dope, taught blind children to read with their fingers, hung laundry on the line before Harlem changed hands, Haight-Ashbury, Bronzeville, raised babies filled with lead, filled with music, convinced the neighbors to mount their speakers in the windows, challenged the unions to overlook her breasts, overlook his boyfriend, the crooked angles of their legs, prepared notes for Dr. King, prepared a trumpet for Miles Davis, signed the warrants on the Salem witch trials, enlisted in the service, registered for nursing school, ran moonshine, collected shot glasses from all around the world, always baked pies for the bake sale, never came home for Christmas, died on Mama's birthday. Through the first rock of red summer, through the switch on death row, through Junior out of the house, saved a man's life on the subway one day, mailed his last dollar to help build the Statue of Liberty, the Little Red Schoolhouse, memorized all of Chuck Berry's moves, Kennedy's speeches, Grandma's recipes, bet against Joe Louis, made love to Doc Holliday, the deacon, and the pastor, Bruce Lee, El Che, Jimi Hendrix, planted the first orange tree in the city, was the first girl to wrestle in the district, first altar boy to break their silence, never told a soul about the operation, never responded to the summons, never stopped going to auditions, never came back to town, stayed sober, stayed together, stayed angry until they died, kept a vigil, kept a faith, kept a locket to remember. Remember, you will be remembered inside of these intricate histories by someone. Or maybe no one will recall that scar on your face, but your story cannot be erased. Your heartbeat is a forever history. Forever history. You were here. Hello. Good evening, good people. Thank you. Thank you. It's one of my favorite pieces to lead with because you were here. And I initially wrote this piece. There was a show where the celebrities were tracing their genealogy and wanted to find their ancestry, and everyone, and I've done my little ancestry tree too, everyone wants to sit down and hope that you're connected to a warrior. Or someone who invented something, or some noble story, and to watch these folks go through the experience and go, oh, he had 3 families? Oh, he went AWOL. Oh, he committed what? Oh, she who? And they're still your people. And more closely, when we think about people searching for us, and what are they going to find when they find our little leaf? All of us get up and go to bed every day thinking and worrying, am I big enough? Is my life enough? Have I accomplished enough? You were here. Period. Full stop. You were here. And that here-ness is enough to celebrate. In this particular project, I wanted to, well, the work that I do in general, I want people to fall into that here-ness. I introduce myself these days as a creative change agent. So I've found that my career as a writer and a poet and a facilitator and an educator and a performer and all those slashes, they all have the common denominator of me digging into my little enormous bag of creative thinking to make an impact, my little thumbprint on human wellness, on social wellness. When you're not the one who has the answers, although I have a lot of answers, there's more, or there's a greater gift in my experience, in my opinion, in bringing together folks to collectively arrive at an answer. We all think we have an idea of an answer, or we know we don't have one, but when you get humans together, answers happen, community happens, grace happens, and our next whatever happens. So with this project, when I was named the Poet Laureate for the state of Wisconsin, I wanted to use the biggest poetry platform to engage all of the poets I've had the pleasure and genuine privilege to work with over the years. So that's from doing Youth Slam. I ran poetry slams for grown-ups and exported our poets across the country. Then it was creating Youth Slam, and the high schools, they challenge each other. Those high school kids are still running our city today, and all the different things that they learned about, yes, poetry, but mostly about their voice, about the value of shaping their words in a way, about building the muscle of listening to other people. And then there's the work that I've been able to do in prison. So I've been a volunteer instructor in prisons for almost 20 years. And so with my work, it's been me going in. It was initially, I got a call from the librarians at this prison, and this coffee turned into this very rich experience where I learned immediately, yes, I'm bringing a set of skills, but mostly I'm coming in to join a community. And I'm a part of that community, and I'm going to help us create a container that we can help maintain, that they can pour into and feed themselves with. So that wasn't what I thought going in, of course, but being available for these humans. And so this project that I wanted to create as Laureate was to find a way for us to build these bridges with voices that are often so easily forgotten. So for example, for the years that I've been running a venue and running the poetry programs, we have rock star poets come into town on tours, and you're going to come to my venue, and I'm going to take you across, down the street to Madison. We might even go to Chicago, and you're going to go see my fellas at Racine Correctional Facility. And for all of the writers that are on tour, it's easy to forget this writing community. And in fact, going back to these librarians, they admit that it started off with them as a joke. They're doing their programming. They thought, you know what we should do? We should have a poetry night. That'll be hilarious. And these men showed up with their binders of poems, with their memoirs, with their plays. They came with their writing that they've been writing for years. So they felt badly. They humbled themselves. They reached out to the best teaching artists they could find, and we did the thing. And so when I wasn't able to go, I again had artists that would go. And more importantly, we would co-facilitate. So if I didn't have a lesson, they had their own curriculum. So they also learned how to build workshops, how to keep each other accountable, their own assignments. And it got to the point where I did a show every year called the Big House Holiday Show. So I would say, hey, can you read 2 poems? Can you sing me 2 songs? Can you do 10 minutes from your comedy routine? I put my friends in a yellow school bus. We went down and we were a USO show. And now we're co-creating. So the prison guitar ensemble played with us, the choir. The very last year when we weren't able to go, the prison canceled our show because the Milwaukee Bucks were scheduled to be there the same week. And that would be too much excitement for the men in one week. So the pedestrian experience of working with and through carceral spaces has its own set of frustrations. And why are you peering at my ID card again? And you can then just on a more exponential scale appreciate what these other humans deal with, and this is their residence. So I wanted folks to I wanted to center the voices of these incarcerated writers. B, I wanted to have a subversive conversation through poetry of whether or not and how these poets are in these buildings. So what happened was I went through and came up with a set of 24 prompts that are random lines of poetry. So these lines of poetry, you don't know the poem it came from, you don't know the poet it's assigned to, you just see this beautiful language. And then from there, we had a website built, and then people would imagine this prompt, write a poem, upload it, and then the pedestrian poets, us on the outside, you would receive an email with a poem from someone else who wrote that same prompt in the same. Now, for the folks who don't have access to the internet, i.e. my fellas, and bookmark. I have taught in women's prisons. It's a 9 out of 10 times the men's prisons that call. So they were able to work with us in advance. So their poems are already in the site. So we had volunteers who would print out and manually mail them their matches each month. But more importantly, I've been using Little Miss Mary up in Rhinelander as a euphemism. She has to decide if it matters to her that the poem she got in her inbox came from a correctional facility or a cul-de-sac. She doesn't have to tell me about it, but she has to decide. And across the board, people want to understand. I want them to remember there's an embodied reminder that there are people in those buildings. We have a different discussion on how they got in said buildings, but I'm going to go so far and for all of you, say that we can agree that how we're doing this justice thing isn't working. It's really never worked. So there are poets and they are inventors and they are parents. They are someone else's child. They are people. And there's a whole nother way that we can do harm and health in our communities. But putting people in cement blocks and pretending that they aren't capable of writing poems is not the direction. So we are celebrating all the poetic voices, and they also are not identified in the book. You just have a book of writers, which is what they all are. So I'm going to give you an example or give a sense of how this could feel. Unfurl like petals longing to bloom. Unfurl like petals longing to bloom. Now the invitation is not to explain what this line means, because that poet had a whole plan. But instead, who does this make you think of? Or what memory does this take you to? Or what moment or what wisdom do you have? And I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself with that story. Unfurl like petals longing to bloom.
I would say for me, it's about coming into the book world and actually discovering that's my passion.
I have so many questions. I love that. Thank you.
For me, it's considering who I was, who I am, and who I want to be.
I love that there's the third part, because we forget that once we're grown, or they didn't tell us that once we get grown, you're still getting grown. So I'm glad that you had that tact on the very end.
Yeah, I'm thinking about romance. I'm thinking about a romantic relationship and the unfurling that happens, like when it's no longer the game of like attraction and the real part of a relationship in which you unfurl and you become like what you're meant to be, right? Like in that space. I don't know. That's where my brain's going.
I like it.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Off the top of my head, when I think of this today in this moment, I think of my daughter and young cousins who are, I call it neo-grown. So they're in the early to mid 20s, and they're at the part where they know that they're not, little kids, 19. They've got bills and things, so they're in a grown-up internship. But it gets a little bit more serious right now. So the part where they're learning that all the theory that was poured into them, they've actually got it. You've actually got what it takes. Even though you just fell down, you have what it takes to pick yourself up and keep going. So this is the unfurling part. Of course. So this is the unfurling part with them. Keep going. All right. So one of the things, and for my poets in the room, that when you say poetry, sorry, online folks, when you say poetry to people who are not poets, there's a rash that happens. They start to twitch a little bit because don't make me. And so part of my work has been having people not be afraid of the word and remembering that they're already poets. So the same way that we just started is how I encourage people. There's a curriculum in all these different classes. Say, hey, don't worry about stanzas or any of that. Just what you see. I have a 3-2-1 poetry starter. First of all, write 3 things, images that you see. Write 2 things that you wonder, and write 1 thing that you feel. And now you have a poem. And then the folks who are more advanced, they really took a spin on that. So I want to give you a little sense of the same question I asked. I'm going to try to not have my laptop embarrassing.
Hmm. Mhm.
New Dimensions by Christina Norcross. This winter heart you carry longs to trace the outline of a wing. Open yourself. Unfurl like petals longing to bloom. New worlds await behind that door, that beaded curtain. You are the opening to the next dimension. Color breathes here, hues of chalcedony blue and stargazer violet. Whatever your flickering heart can imagine, it lives. Let go of unwanted burdens. Wings will appear transparent, gold dust flutterings. Your heartbeat pulses to the rhythm of a new atmosphere. You are building a new world where sky is moss green, jasper stones vibrate beneath your feet, and all who open the door are welcome. So one of the things that I did creatively was in all of the poems that came into the website. So I call them these buckets. So all the poems that were submitted in the unfurl bucket, I went through and randomly selected poems and randomly selected lines and made new poems. So this would be called the Unfurl Collective. Buried under a forgotten horizon, blossoming without restraint. The silly seed is so special, an epiphany, a breakthrough. Blurs of oblivion, she swirls like a Sufi, a commandment to bow. Men swaddled it tight with loops of twine, a spirit of wonderment as bubbles tumble, race forward, disappear. Sashes and sills, peeling paint, the saltiness of your ocean's kiss. Perhaps they left. Have you ever had a gift just walk in the door? Perhaps they left as slowly. Oh my goodness! I'm so sorry, and I'm not at all. So each of these pieces, each of these lines were written, I pulled them that way. So the best part was to be able to pull it together in mind folks with intention. Yeah. Poems will happen. So of the 24 prompts, there are 10 that actually made the book. So the prompts came from my predecessor as the state laureate. Peggy Rosga published a book called Through This Door. So I went through that book and found the poems. And then the second set of prompts, my second year of the term, the first poet laureate for the city of Sheboygan published a book that translated poems from Wisconsin and Chicago author from Wisconsin into Chinese.
Oh.
Brilliant. And I am already in conversation with other laureate networks and poets across the country. People are loaning lines of their poems because we're already getting ready for volume 2.
Woo! Come on.
So this was a lot of fun. This was a lot of fun pulling these together. So there were, of the 2 years of the poems that were traded back and forth, we had hundreds of poems and 60 poets from 21 different cities across the state. And of this collection, there are half a dozen other poet laureates. There are a dozen incarcerated writers. I have 4 farmers. I have 2 engineers. I have 3 professors, someone who's never written a poem before, some students, and a whole lot of life in between. And a whole lot of life in between. Oh, I think this is good.
In the bow of an anxious frenzy. Somehow we all survived. I regret waiting to unleash myself, bombarded by life's madness. I saw little twigs of inspiration resting, a joyous calm, a quiet confidence. Because I mess around and tell the truth, darkness rises once more, and I accept it, greedily, with open arms, vulnerable, grabbing a morsel, We are different, but share so much the same. Daybreak shrugs off night sweat, shudders. Smoke smells different, but I know I need to heal me.
And the other little treat was in the website, on the portal, people are invited to give a little backstory for how you got from this prompt to this poem. In the bow of an anxious frenzy, I participated in the midnight run sled dog race one mid-February with my 8 Alaskan Huskies. During our 46-mile night run to the checkpoint in Chatham, the clear night with the moon and Orion giving us a sense of direction became a windy, snowy challenge. The experience seemed to match this prompt perfectly. Snowfalls and drifting veils in the windswept woods, once visible, now after midnight, full moon obscured, Orion clouded over, dizzying flakes scatter the beam of my Petzl headlamp. Through the white, I strained to see my dogs pulling in their traces. Wind sways the limbs, branches wildly scratch the sky. All around, trunks creak, groan, eliciting my fear of toppling trees. Along the way, I stopped the team, feed snacks of butter, frozen meat, tend to their feet, their precious feet, remove ripped booties, finger off ice again. I stand on the runners. We advance into the swirling snow. Miles ahead on this winding trail lies the sweet light of the checkpoint. In the challenge of wind and white, so much respect for these huskies, proud to witness our resolve to press on. A joyous calm, a quiet confidence beneath the boughs, tossed in anxious frenzy, a catch at my throat for my running dogs. Let me tell you, there were no other dog poems. Right?
Yeah.
So just, it was part of the fun thing too of just, okay, you wrote about a house fire, you wrote about a first love. And again, it's this embodied reminder that one line is going to mean something different to each person, but to receive it and to celebrate it in this way, just a reminder that we can be humans a whole lot better. We let folks live their whole human lives. Right? So in this human life, I'm going to share now. I have this whole thing. Marsha isn't able to join us. I'm going to come back to you. So I'm going to go right to Joseph. So Joseph is my internal coordinator. So I've got a letter from him probably 15 years ago. It goes, I've heard what you're doing at Racine Correctional. Can you come to my institution too? I don't know what kind of network y'all have going on, but yes. And yes, so he connected me with the chaplain at this facility, and I went and I taught. And Joseph has probably been, I think, at 4 different institutions over these years. So he went in at 17 on a 25-year hit, and he's on down to his last 2 years. And he is currently still a contributing writer to community newspapers outside. He's a mentor. He teaches classes. He is working on his memoir. We have somebody editing that for him now. So he's been doing his work. And when I say he's going to hit the ground running, he's going to hit the ground absolutely running. So when this project came together, he connected me with probably 6 other writers and institutions across the state. So it was interesting talking about this pedestrian experience. I had the meeting with the head of the DLC. I'm going to fling this Laureate title all over the place to make sure we get this contact. And I said, because any institution or individual, their budget reflects their values. And you put a lot of money into their deficits. AODA, great. Parenthood, awesome. Job training, sure. But nothing in their humanity. Nothing in their humanity, but we want them to come home vibrating with humanity, and it doesn't work that way. And he said, I agree and understand. I think this is a great idea. And I support the arts. My wife and I, blah, 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 blah. He says, but you need to know that all of these institutions operate as their own fighters. So I can agree with you, and you're still going to have to convince every institution and work with, that's okay, I'm built for that. So I go to the folks who run all of the education and all of the programming. We're having a great meeting and they're excited about it. And I'm just displaying the layout, and they go, oh, did you say that you were working with the men? Yeah, I have an internal committee. Oh, we don't like to give them leadership positions.
Oh.
You mean the leaders?
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe instead, maybe you want to pilot this at the jails or something, or maybe want to try something. I said, oh, I'm sorry. This wasn't a meeting of me asking permission. This was me inviting you to what's about to happen. So was barred as a volunteer for a year, but here we are still, and I'm back. So knowing the things that were put in place, and for him to have made these connections, literally this underground connection, and so bit by bit, I've expanded my family. I've expanded my team of brothers. I now have Sammy call me every Saturday, whether I pick up or not, just to make sure I'm okay. And so it's been rich across the board. Like I said, I've been able to build community with these men, and not just I'm coming in to save the day.
Yeah.
I'm coming in to bring you all my magic. I mean, I'm bringing magic, but we're saving things together. So I would love for you to meet the person. No. Yeah.
Hello, thanks for having me. Sorry I'm not able to attend on these hours. We are locking ourselves. Before I share my recital, I'd like to share a small anecdote. After Hurricane Katrina and Big World, there was a Buddhist center, a Zen center in Orleans, and they were doing themselves, students and the teachers. So they all were participating in this effort, throwing everything away in the dumpster. Tired, exhausted, ready to get this over with, so they can go home and rebuild their own personal lives. In the middle of it, the teacher told everybody to stop and to make 3 piles. 1 pile full of glass and steel, 1 pile full of the trees and branches, 1 pile full of rodents. So the students did it. They did it begrudgingly, they did it resentfully, they did it with frustration. They just wanted to clean up, go home, and start cleaning up their own personal lives. But they did it, and at the end, they asked the teacher why. Why make 3 piles? And the teacher told them that glass and steel would be melted down, refurbished, and used for our windows, and the steel would be used for the structural damage, to replace the structural damage of the building. He said the trees and branches would be chopped down and used for our fireplace, and the dead rodents would get a proper burial. He looked at the students and said, nothing is trash, nothing is garbage. No matter how stressed, depressed, or traumatic you are, always see value in things, see purpose in things, and that things have use, even when it appears to be garbage or trash. And so when I was invited to participate in this project, I was in a maximum security prison where we were locked down for 24 hours a day, sometimes for weeks on end. People was getting high, people was committing suicide, people was fighting, getting knocked out. It was a lot of violence of all sorts, self-inflicted and from outside. And so I came to this environment from a medium security prison. In a medium, we get the keys to our doors, we get fresh air, we get to socialize with our peers, we get rest every day, we get limited freedoms that maximum don't have. And those limited freedoms does a lot to reduce the stress and just to make you feel more human. So due to my bad decision making, I left this environment and I went to the horrific environment of Walmart. And so when Dasha Kelly invited me to participate, I'm in Walmart, seeing the results of my bad decisions every day and feeling it to my core. And really the feelings are kind of toxic because it deals with shame and blame and it deals with fault and they all are targeted towards me. So when Dasha Kelly invited me, I didn't feel like participating in this project. But Dasha Kelly, she came in as the Zen teacher and she reminded me that I have youth, that I have purpose, and that I have value. I'm not trash. I'm not garbage. Those feelings were trash and garbage. And Dasha Kelly helped me take those feelings and put them in the dumpster. And so this poem is a extension of Dasha Kelly reminding me of my value and my purpose. All right, here we go. The prompt to this is until the moon tapped on her window, calling her name. She thought the nights were hers alone, her time to be alone, her time to be free, her time to be weak, her most cathartic time of the week, her time to be honest, her time to cry, her time to wipe the makeup from her eyes, her time to put down the disguise, her time to swing her hands, her time to dance, her time for self-romance, her time to look into the indigo skies while drinking her favorite wines, her time to feel alive, her time to feel the magic and the mystery that simply eluded her everyday life until the moon tapped on her window, calling her name. She thought she heard voices. She thought the ghost of yesteryear was in her ear. Consumed by curiosity and not fear, she turned, put down her pen. To the disappointment of her muse, she stopped writing and put on her house shoes. She noticed the illumination of the moon. She suddenly leaped out of her window. Her light brown skin glowed. There were no shadows, no lunar eclipse, just lunar bliss. She became one with the moon like it was meant. Nobody had seen her since, as if she disappeared without a trace of evidence. And her notebook was written one word, lunatic. Thank you for having me tonight.
So I have proper names and faces and specific people that I'm writing for, that we're writing for in this project. All of my words, all of my hearts. And so in this experience, there are some of the contributors that I met through their poems. You know, I knew of them and I got to read their words, and some I'd never heard of them before, which is a state why I didn't even hope that would be the case. I hope it would have been all the people I knew. And get to meet these folks from the stories that they share and the poems that they write. And so taking this project outside of the state borders, I get an opportunity to, again, meet incredible people through their work and how their work has shaped how they walk through the world. So I learned about how this brother walks through the world by the impact his work has made. So I knew of your spirit. I knew of the impact you're making before I saw or looked up a single line of poetry. So I'm really excited to be able to share the space with you. I'm glad that you were able to make the time to be a part of this now new family, because I'm keeping you. I'm keeping you. And so because this work and all of this is using poetry as a way to stitch communities together. So thank you for being a stitch here, and I'm welcoming Caleb Rainey to the stage.
I am going to just share a couple of poems.
Yeah, so I'm happy to be here. I'm Caleb, the Negro artist Randy. I like to just jump right into some poetry. Hey, new friend, you just come on. I'm gonna hop in, but I do want to give a caveat here of that I do tackle some harsh language sometimes. So like just being prepared for that, and let's speak hard truth and hold them together, right? I don't remember the first time I was called nigger. I remember the first time I wasn't. I'm 15, new to high school, not sure who I'm going to be or what people see when they look at me. So I search and find a guy who seems to have all the answers I could copy from. Brad. A white boy with hair on fire, and I couldn't help but admire his confidence. He stood so tall and strong, and I felt so small. So when he talks to me in the parking lot after school, I am desperate to play it cool. He talks to me about the soccer team, and I ask him how he got so good, but before he could answer, a car drives by. Obviously from the hood. Trap rattling a pack of black boys in the back, and Brad sighs, rolls his eyes, and says to me, "Man, I hate niggers. Good thing you're not one of them." So then I wonder then what I have been. Am I a nigger? See, I wasn't born by the river in a little tent, but I shot my first gun there with my uncle who'd spent plenty of time in the pen. And my granny never passed the 8th grade, but she could cook up collard greens and fry up chicken like she had a culinary degree. And my granddad, well, he was a dishwasher, but he could still toss you in spades or tunk like you were a little punk. And I played chess with my great uncle, who's been in and out of rehab and tells me all about the life he's had. And I know it's sad, but not all my cousins know their dads. And some of my cousins fight their fears with fists because they're too hard for tears. And some of my cousins yell and can't spell and have seen the inside of a cell. But when they see me, they always wish me well. And some of my cousins made it out to Cali or elsewhere, and I swear God's there. Even with nappy hair and sagging skinny jeans, they always seem to find a way to make ends meet. And all my cousins and I rap along to the songs in the car, too loud. And now I find myself wondering what that makes me. Am I a nigger? See, Brad wasn't the first white man to see my tan and assume he knew my hand. I remember coming home from a school event. The day was spent, but a cop made me stop. Asked what was I doing out so late. And I didn't see any hate, but I knew what was at stake, so I apologized. Told him I'd get home soon. And he said, "You better. Only criminals like the light of the moon." And that's when I knew that he was afraid of the dark. I remember my junior high crush couldn't go to the dance with me because her father wouldn't take a chance with me. Said he'd heard about those black boys. And I guess the cops did too, because what do they do but pull me over for no turn signal? Doesn't that sound a little fickle? Or pull me over for too sharp a turn. Doesn't that sound a little absurd? But their eyes tell no lies when they look at me and see less than. Like my math teacher, who kept me in during recess. Told my parents I was dumb because I spent too much time talking to my classmates, erasing the division she creates rather than learning her lesson on how to subtract my presence. Because 0 equals black. And in fact, the cops taught me that. When a bullet hit a brother's back in front of my childhood home, and the cops showed up and they blocked off the whole zone like traffic cones, but never moved to help. Only kept us from ourselves. So that nigga died. And I can't lie. I'm afraid to walk at night. Because I just might learn the answer to the cancer that's inside my head. Am I a nigger? Thank you, that's that piece. Yeah, and so I found poetry. I was born and raised in Missouri, which Missouri is the Midwest that really wants to be the South, right?
Bad.
Like they want it. Like no one wants it more, I don't think. And so, what happened there is I found poetry as a space where I felt like that was one of the only places I was listened to, right? Because all of my life I'm being told to be quiet, be smaller, fit into these spaces differently, right? At one point, the school system thought I was too loud and they sent me to mandatory speech therapy where I learned how to be quieter. Like that was what was happening, right? So like I had a lot of experiences, and so what ended up happening is poetry became the place where I said, all right, you want to argue about whether racism is real or not or whatever, these systems are a problem. I'm not even here to make that argument necessarily. I'm just going to show you my experiences. And can't we agree that this is messed up? That these things that are being said to me are problematic, right? Whether you want to name them, whatever, right? You can't tell me that my experiences didn't happen. And so poetry became that space for me. And so I started writing in that a whole lot. And then eventually I wrote a book, and I want to read this poem because it feels connected to today for me. This piece was inspired by Andre Wright. If anyone knows Andre Wright, he's a fashion designer. He makes these hoodies that say "Humanize My Hoodie." He's been New York Fashion Week and whatnot, but he's from Waterloo, I believe, is his home state or home city, and now he lives in Iowa City. And so he does a lot of really wonderful fashion work. And so he has these hoodies that say "Humanize My Hoodie," and he reached out to me years ago and was like, "Hey, you do really cool poetry about the things that I feel like, I'm clearly trying to make a movement towards." And so he asked me to write this poem. And so it feels important to share today. It's titled, "Humanize Me." Black boy on the block with quick feet and big dreams. But it seems this means little life bathed in melanin makes a monster of his skin. They say boy must be a man, yet still call him boy. A toy in his hand turns him into a weapon. Threatened by a hoodie, they confuse comfort for menace. And since they can't outrun bigots or bullets, he can only become one kind of holy. He loves red Skittles and red Kool-Aid, basketball and Batman. And he doesn't want to die a hero. His only superpower a halo, but he knows living can make him a villain. Fill in all that empty hope with hatred. Call those stitches survival scars. Far too many black men made monster by burying their boyhood behind conjured up images fed to them. We embrace the flawed perspectives because even the exceptions don't live. So they tempted to become a Frankenstein fantasy. Forget all about their own humanity. Make black be anger, be fighting, be danger, be dying. No. We must challenge the status quo. Go back through history and heritage. American monsters revealed to be people, to be black. That the stories don't match. Rewrite our thoughts with truth. Like black can be youth. Be innocent. Be happy, be strong, be soft, be free, be beautiful. Whether it be in a hoodie or in the hood, black, be human. Thank you. And I think I got time for one more I want to share from the book here, because I think that would be really, really lovely. So this is titled Misunderstood. It's by Robert Patterson and Kettle Moraine. I grew up in a place where being hard is more important than knowing the definition of a word. Getting money is our favorite verb, and European luxury on chrome is how we celebrate our achievements. Some mistake the culture as misleading, misunderstand the aggression in our dealings as justification to shoot an unarmed man in the back 7 times and then take away his freedom. The pursuit of happiness has 2 sides, both defined by perception and experience. When you learn that your zip code is one of the nation's smallest and most segregated cities and leads the nation in in incarceration, how would you define liberty? If your perception and experience is marred by impotence and ignorance, if your message is reckless, but you have the complexion for the connection in the land of the free, home of the slaves, you can become the president. My worldview is complex, a duality in singular form. Kneeling during the anthem will bring a public lynching. One nation divided against itself is the norm. You don't want to see me in rare form because I'll mess around and tell the truth. They turned DOC numbers into dollar signs. The war on drugs was the tool. They manipulate the masses so no one questions mass incarceration as long as it ain't happening in your neighborhood. We, the victims, remain faceless. I know a man who was once a boy with a promise. Sit in a room with interrogators and tell the truth about a lie. His mother was uneducated and didn't know the definition of coercion. So the judge gave him life. The world is black and white. Lady Justice adorns a blindfold so she won't see public officials keeping tally of wins and losses. Children grow up without fathers because people with fragile egos break and enforce the laws. Our senators and congressmen are gangsters without impunity, redistricting voter maps and changing voting laws that disenfranchise entire communities. Would you preach unity in Tulsa if Tulsa was your community? That's that piece. Whew. Tough. I just want to say thank you all so much for having me here. Again, my name is Caleb Rainey. If you want to follow me on anything, I'm _Negro artist. I am based in Iowa City, so if you do see me around, stop and say hi. Love to chat. But thank you so much for having me here. And please just dive into this project. This is so wonderful. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Almost like we practiced it.
Yes.
Do the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple of things with, and for those who are watching, alignment.org. So you're able to go and enter your email so that you're part of the family. So a couple of things, this will be the community where I'll be able to share updates, because as much as this is a book release, this is also a grand opening of a new initiative, of course. Actually, like, of course you do. So a couple of things, like I mentioned, we'll have new prompts. We have poets that are loaning their lines. We're getting ready to receive, to post new prompts, receive new poems. Some of the English. There are 24 prompts. So there are 14 prompts still from the original set that will still be live and active. We'll have new ones coming in. But even outside of the book that'll be published, just the exchange back and forth that will happen. So secondly, I wanted to let you know the next part of this alignment, this book project is now going to be an initiative on a creative way to bring people home. So my nonprofit, which is a literary arts organization, Stillwater's Collective, is 25 this year. It's crazy, man. And so in addition to all those different works, continuing with this work and really building out this experience. So Alignment will become a fellowship for impacted organizers and writers. They'll be able to create writing communities where they live. And as a cohort, those community leaders will also pull together, will work on a literary magazine. So they'll get coaching, they'll get training, they'll get support, they'll be paid. And on the other side of this, there'll be these new networks of family and home for them. So of the things that me and my fellows talked about for these decades is how can they have this when they get home?
Yeah.
Sure poems, sure art, but they argued over these poems. They got to understand each other's politics through these poems, each other's lived experiences through these poems. They also supported each other when that family member didn't pick up for visitation, or when someone got put in a hole and got out. The people who aren't coming home, this was a place of safety for them. And we talked, how do I do this when I get home? So for people who do project management, you say, well, all you got to do is, well, we're turning all you got to do is into an experience where they can create this when they come home. So that way, the work that is still happening outside, inside, there'll be a place for them to land once they come outside. And there's a template to this. So I've already had a meeting with the Lieutenant Governor of Alaska, right? So this is something that can happen everywhere, every state, every home, every place that someone needs a voice and they're looking for a way to get home and create space for themselves.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to be able to share that, and the folks that are in the alignment network will be a place I'll be able to reach out to, you know what's going on. So in fact, people will have to upload a poem to even be able to apply.
Ooh.
So we'll be those applications this fall. And the next phase, I'll be coming back around to the communities that invited us to do the book launch, to do community workshops on how to get started and how to keep writing and how to keep building. So you're part of the beginning of something really special. And yes, get the book. Yes. So any questions? Thank you, Caleb, for sharing your voice and your work. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Swamp Fox for making this a home for us now. And thank you for your voices for being here tonight. And I'll sprinkle. Thank you, online.